Welcome to the Mama's Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Well, let's see. I might be well, but I am feeling anxiety right now. There is an undercurrent of anxiety, I think, around all of us. Actually, I'm prone to anxiety. I've struggled with anxiety most of my adult life. I think children who've come from traumatic backgrounds, anybody who's experienced childhood trauma probably struggles with anxiety. And so, one thing I've found that when I am struggling, it can a lot of times come back down to I'm holding on really tight to something, some particular outcome or result, and I gotta let go. I gotta surrender. And I remember that word, surrender, became super powerful for me I'm thinking about 6 years ago. My oldest son had gotten his driver's license, first driver in our family, which this is great. It's awesome. It's so helpful, but it's also, it's a big letting go. And so I was struggling with it. When he would ask to go anywhere, I was in my mind driving down all the streets where he would have to go. And worst case scenarios were popping in my head all the time. Every time he'd ask to go anywhere, I had anxiety. Every time he pulled out of the driveway, every time he called and said he was on his way home. It was rough. And I knew it's not good for me and it's not good for him. And just in an effort to try to, let it go. I don't know even where this came from. It just happened, but it worked. And I would visualize him in the palm of my hand. And then anytime I started to feel fear, I would just visualize him in the palm of my hand. And then I would lift him up as if I was just giving him to God, and in a gesture of surrender. And that word surrender became like my mantra that year. Just the theme. And I had it engraved on a necklace, which I'm wearing. It says surrender. And I thought about a tattoo, but I don't have any tattoos yet. Then I thought, what if I have a new word next year? And then I end up with like this whole array, this dictionary on my arm. So I ditched the tattoo for the moment and I got a necklace. Anyway, when I'm feeling that, when I'm feeling that anxiety and I'm feeling the need, I need to surrender something, I rub my hands across it. And it reminds me of letting go. Another thing I want to talk about that takes surrender, and it's this right here. Creating Mama's Well podcast, doing this each week is a huge surrender. I'm surrendering to my negative, self-defeating thoughts, things like the what ifs. What if nobody listens? What if what I have to say isn't relevant? What if, who am I? Who am I to even think I have something to offer? Those are the thoughts that go on in my head, and I have to let them go, because if I don't, I'll be stuck. I'll be paralyzed. I won't move forward. I won't do what my heart longs to do. And that I was stuck for a long time. I've wanted to use my life, my hurts, my struggles, my victories, my triumphs to connect with other people for a long time. But fear has kept me stuck, and I have to surrender that fear. I have to surrender the outcome of Mama's Well podcast. This weekend, I'm remembering a friend of mine stopped me, and she said, "Hey, I've been listening to the podcast, and I just want to tell you, you're so brave." And I just thought for a moment in my head, she has no idea that I am not brave at all. And I told her, I said, "You know what? Thank you for saying that. But I don't feel brave. I feel I feel afraid. I feel scared. I feel worried about what it is I'm doing. Should I be doing it? And she just looked at me and she said, you know what? That is bravery. When you do something and you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know where it's going to take you, but you do it anyway, that's bravery. And I thought to myself, she's right. She's right. That is bravery. And you know, another thing that is, it's vulnerability. And I cannot even say the word vulnerability without thinking of Brene Brown. She's the vulnerability guru. And so I want to read you what Brene says about vulnerability. Brene describes vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and I love this word, and I'm probably going to say it over and over again, emotional exposure. She says that vulnerability is the core, the heart, it's the center of all meaningful human experiences. And I love that word too, meaningful human experiences. That's what I want to have, meaningful human experiences. I don't know about you, but that's the only kind of human experiences I want to have is meaningful ones. And so that takes vulnerability. That's what it takes is vulnerability. And so I can't think of another more vulnerable experience or thing we do than parenting. That is one of the most vulnerable things we do. And it requires serious emotional risk and emotional exposure. So what I want to talk about, when we first become parents, and some of us through adoption, some of us through birth, some of us through both. But when I first became a parent, you know, I think before that little person, that little Brooks, I probably lived more guarded. I think I let myself down, let my guard down with my husband, and I had let him in. But when Brooks was born, like you can't guard your heart with that baby. I mean, you're all in, whether you want to be or not. You love deeply. And when you love deeply, you stand to lose deeply, to experience loss more deeply. That's like the yin and the yang. You love big, you lose big. That is serious vulnerability, and that's what we as parents have to do if we want to raise children and have meaningful relationships and meaningful experiences with them. And you know what? Foster and adoptive parents, they're like parenting vulnerability on steroids, because the kids that we are parenting through foster care and through adoption, these kids have already lost big. And so, you know, to lose big once, they're on guard, right? They don't want to lose big again. So, you know what we get when we love them? Sometimes we don't get love back. Sometimes we get rejection back, and that hurts. It takes vulnerability to love that anyway, to love in the face of rejection. That's serious vulnerability. Another part of foster care is, man, you might lose the whole entire relationship. You have to love a child like they are your very own, like they were never leaving your home, when the truth of the matter is they could leave tomorrow. That's vulnerability. That's what I mean when I say foster parents and adoptive parents. You're doing vulnerability on steroids. And when we choose that, there's big rewards. And so I want to just challenge us to choose that, because there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees with parenting at all, and there's definitely no guarantees with foster care. Parenting with any sort of peace is going to require for us to just surrender the outcome. We're going to have to surrender the outcome. One particular day, I remember this. Talk about vulnerability, talk about experiencing the vulnerability. This was a day that I clearly remember experiencing that. I had left visitation, and we just had our youngest daughter at the time. Her sister had not joined us yet, and for whatever reason, I left that visitation with the reality check that she might not always be with me. And you know what? I knew what I signed up for. We are foster parents. We really didn't expect to adopt. We were just foster parents. That's what the paperwork said. So I knew what we were signing up for. But this particular day, I could barely make it to the car. There was a huge lump in my throat, and I was waves of emotion was about to erupt. Luckily, I made it to the car, and I had an hour drive home. And that entire drive home, I was just flooded with emotion and tears and sobs, just over the fact that she might not be staying with us. And so I got home, and normally I would put her down for her nap, and I couldn't put her down. And we went upstairs, and we sat in a rocking chair, and she fell asleep on me, and I held her for hours. I did nothing else that day but hold her. And I just experienced her, and I just loved her with the thought in mind that might be my last time. That is vulnerability, and that is a meaningful human experience. And those meaningful human experiences are what makes us close and connected with one another. And I am very close and connected with her. I think back, I thought that day, I remembered, it reminded me of that old Garth Brooks song, The Dance. I might not have experienced, let's see, what was it? I would have missed the pain, but I'd have missed the dance. And that's kind of what it is with foster care is, we could shut ourselves down. We could harden our hearts. We could not love all in, but we would miss the joy, the love, the connection. And that's what we all need. And that's especially what these kids need. So I wouldn't trade that moment, that pain, that sadness that I experienced that day, all day. I wouldn't have traded that. I wouldn't have traded the time I had with my daughter, even if it wasn't forever, which it's going to be. But even if it weren't, even if she wasn't going to be adopted, which she was, and I was going to give her back the next week, I wouldn't have traded the time that I had with her so I wouldn't experience that pain. Does that make sense? That got me emotional. It was hard to express, but I don't want to trade. I don't want to give up what I have because I don't want to experience pain. I'd rather take it all. And that's how you get meaningful human experiences. Surrender is particularly hard for those of us who've experienced childhood trauma. And the reason for that is because when you've experienced a chaotic or disruptive childhood, or if there was any way, attachments broken, or you're going to hold on, right? You're going to protect. You're going to be on guard. You're going to be watchful. So letting go is not something that comes easy for you. If you've had any kind of childhood trauma, you want to control. You want to predict. You want to make sure that you're going on the right path all the time because you don't want to experience any more pain. And so, no wonder anxiety shows up for me, shows up for us, for those of us who have experienced things like divorce as a child, or addiction, or abuse, neglect, whatever that may be. It's hard to let go. And so, but you know what? The truth is, like I said a minute ago, what is the cost of that? What is the cost of walking around protected? Children will soften this. They did for me. For a while you can, like I was saying earlier, you can live protected and guarded for a while. But eventually, man, it didn't take long. You love all in. And then as they get older, like they're walking around the world, they're driving their cars out of your driveway and you don't have any control. It's like your heart, that vulnerable heart of yours is walking around unprotected in their bodies. And that's hard and that's scary, but that's part of me learning to live in vulnerability, to live in that place, to love and risk. I'm done. I don't want to predict. I don't want to always be weighing the cost of every little thing. Always questioning the what ifs. What if? I got to just be in the what is right now. In that moment with my daughter, that's what is. I was in the limbo. I was in the, is she going back or is she staying? I was there. And I was sad and I was grieving it. But you know what? I was in it with her. And that was beautiful. So, man, that was heavy. That's good though. This is all, this is what we're dealing with, right? Surrender, vulnerability. And these are things that we choose. We choose vulnerability. We choose surrender. And it's not something we have to practice it. This is not something that comes naturally to me. Not at all. Ask my husband. He'll tell you. It does not come easy. It comes with practice. And so, we all have to practice things. Parenting is a practice. And so I have to surrender. This is I think my takeaway for today. Okay. We surrender the outcome and we choose vulnerability. We let go of all of the what ifs and we are present to the what is right now in this moment. I think that's going to make a good wisdom from the well card. So you know what to do. You're going to download the wisdom from the well card. You're going to post it on your house, somewhere in your house, your car, wherever. Print out too. I don't care. This is a practice. This is something we need to see. We need to put this right there so that we're seeing. Let go. Let go. We do the best we can, and then we let it go. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that I feel less anxious. I'm going to walk out of here less anxious. I hope you are too. And remember, if you're listening on iTunes, I'm starting to understand this. Some are listening on iTunes, some are watching on YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, if you would take just a second and rate the podcast, write a review, I would love to hear your comments. But give us a review, give us a rating. If you're on YouTube, I think it's a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I would love to hear. There's comments on my website. I read those comments. I would love to hear from you there. And download your wisdom from the well card. We'll see you next week.
Mama's way.